Can you take yourself back to a time when you were triggered into anger? Maybe somebody said something or somebody did something, someone cut you off in traffic, and immediately there's that response. The jaw gets tight and the knuckles get tight, and the tension in your back just starts to build, and it's just like there's the anger. Or maybe you're somebody like me that when your buttons get pushed towards anger, you burst into tears, and it's like this doesn't make any sense, but it's the way our body responds, which is going to be unique to you. It's going to be unique to me. And that's exactly why I want to talk about what is anger? How can we get in control of our anger? And in fact, let's talk about how we can resolve the anger so we don't attract in people to push our buttons anymore. So exciting. I'm really excited to talk to you about this today. Hi there, my name is Claire Chancellor. I'm an NLP trainer and an NLP coach. I love to work with people all over the world to feel empowered. This conversation about anger is an empowering one, as there's a lot of detail that I want to share with you to be able to, for you to get in charge of your own body. Again, put your head up high, feeling empowered so that you are in control of you. So I've got some slides here that I want to share with you. And the bit of the joke there is that, putting these slides together and being focused on anger, I really had to stay in that high vibe mode and not drop down into, into the energy of anger. So stay with me, guys, as we talk about this, because I want to explore what is anger? What does it mean to be angry? What is the difference between a healthy anger and suppressed anger? How do your boundaries fit in with anger? And what can you do about anger to get back in control of you, yourself, your mind, your body, how your life? So, by definition, anger is a strong feeling of annoyance, displeasure, or hostility, and it shows up when we're threatened. Now, that healthy type of anger is there to protect you, it's there to protect your boundaries. And in fact, we do not want to strip anybody of the ability to get angry. If someone is attacking you physically or emotionally, you want your body to respond, right? You want the confidence to know that you will stand up for what is important to you, just like a lioness or like that mama bear. And it's like, if you threaten to hurt my children, watch me roar. So there is a difference there about healthy anger and suppressed anger. And let's dive into that. Now, suppressed anger is the anger that I actually want to focus on with you today. It's the type of anger that comes from, not speaking up, holding yourself back, keeping the peace at the expense of you, not asking for what you want, or just brewing with the fear and stress of, like, God forbid you actually ask for what you want or stand up for what you want. Now, if you are suppressing your anger, if you're suppressing that kind of intensity within your body, it's going to actually start to show up with health concerns. It's going to show up with things like depression, migraines, asthma, skin problems, back pain, shoulder pain, alcoholism. Your body is going to pretty much fester if you suppress the anger, and it's going to, keep you in that spiral. And again, let's explore why that is. So living with suppressed anger, it's definitely going to corrode your self-esteem because you're not speaking your truth. It's going to deplete your self-worth. It's going to destroy your confidence if you don't believe that you can move towards what it is that you want no matter what. It's going to keep you in that spiral of being stuck. It's going to leave you feeling unfulfilled because there again is the lack of confidence, the lack of self-worth to go after what you want. It's going to make it difficult to achieve the things that your intuition wants you to achieve. And it's going to stop you from manifesting in the abundance. I know from my own journey that when I was in, really heavy duty toxic relationships and I would suppress and I would people please, the anger that had built up in my system meant that I was definitely doing things like chronic fatigue, adrenal fatigue, uh, yeah, I did glandular fever for a bit, did shingles for a bit. The suppression of that pure energy just fatigued me no end because it was just there was no outlet for it. There was no ability to there's no belief within myself to stand up for what I wanted, to talk about what I wanted, to express what I wanted. because I had so much fear and a fear of them, of the consequences of what they could do if I actually expressed myself. So I was really, really angry, really angry. And it was only when a coach took me through a particular process to understand why I had suppressed my ability to speak up, why I was people pleasing, that my energy came back, like going from like absolutely fatigued out of my mind to my energy coming back and a jump in my step for life. It was like, oh, mental clarity. So we're going to dive into more about that kind of process, more of that exploration. But yeah, just heads up, been here, done that, and I will not go back. So, energetically, keep in mind that anger is actually a secondary emotion. It is always, always going to follow a sense of powerlessness. That's why I share my story with you. Your boundaries got crossed, your inner peace got disturbed, and that your fight and flight kicked in, instinctively leaving you in that reactive mode. So, energetically, what's happening here is if you think about the last time that you were angry and just slow down the movie of your mind, what happened just before you got angry? Did someone push your buttons? Did someone disrespect your boundaries? Did someone speak over you or not consider you in some way? There was this moment in time where there was this angst of like powerlessness that you weren't heard, considered, valued, all of those things. And then what happened just after that is the anger, I should say. So notice that the first thing that happened before the anger was the awareness that your boundaries got crossed. Something happened, your body kicked in with a response, and then the anger followed. If your unconscious mind knew how to address that boundary violation, somebody didn't consider you, they didn't ask you to the party. If you knew how to address that in that moment, you would respond accordingly. You may be frustrated. Hey, what about me? But you wouldn't actually go to the anger. The anger is telling us that your unconscious mind doesn't actually know how to respond, and so it's going to immediately feel powerless because it doesn't know how to respond, and therefore you're going to react with that anger. I was like, whether you get loud, like what, or you actually burst into tears and it's like, well, why did they invite me to the party? Either way, the anger always comes second. So this is what I mean when it's a secondary emotion. It's always going to follow that sense of powerlessness when your boundaries got crossed. The thing with knowing that is that when you can identify the powerlessness, you can resolve the anger. It doesn't have to come up. So the other hand of this session here is, what are boundaries? Like I keep talking about how your boundaries got crossed. Like, wait a minute, let's bring in some clarity here. So boundaries are an invisible line that defines your personal happiness, your personal integrity, your personal truth, and your personal needs. Your boundaries are going to be completely different to my to my boundaries. That's why it's important to communicate your boundaries with people that you interact with. So there's definitely going to be some yes boundaries and there's going to be some no boundaries. And that's what I mean, like what's right for you is not necessarily going to be right for me. So a yes boundary is about what it is that you want in your world, what you need in your world. And it's like I'm, saying like I need to be spoken to with respect. I want to be considered. I would like if you could, insert what it is that you would like. And then there are the no boundaries of like, no, I actually will not tolerate that around me. Like, no, I'm not going to be responsible if you go ahead and do that. No, I do not want you to, to X, Y, and Z. As an NLP coach, I would actually articulate specifically what it is that you do want, like to say, I want you to behave like this around me, or, going off track there a little bit. But recognizing what it is that is okay around you and what it is that you just won't tolerate. These are your boundaries. So many times people assume that boundaries are just a full-on exclusion, but it's not. It's both ways. So keep in mind that the boundaries are there to nourish you, and it's to keep in what nourishes you and to keep out what will not will not nourish you. So as an example, let me have let me have plenty of chocolate ice cream. Yes, I want you to bring the chocolate ice cream home. Thank you. That's wonderful. But don't expect me to eat the strawberry ice cream like, ugh. And that's a boundary, right? It's that simple. It doesn't need to be so complex. It's when, you've articulated to, your loved one to bring home could you please bring home chocolate ice cream, and they bring home strawberry. It's like, well, wait, my boundaries are crossed to you. Why didn't you consider me? What's going on? Can we talk about this? It's a simple example, but hopefully it's painting the picture. So keep in mind that with your boundaries, we're actually not asking the other person to change. We are changing the way that you respond and the way that you take responsibility for yourself, the way that you communicate your needs to other people to get what you want. When you start to implement these boundaries, when you start to get these aha moments of how you are putting yourself second and how you are people pleasing, um, there's going to be this aha moment where it's like, wait, I'm gonna have to actually change the dance with my loved ones. And that can be confronting, that can be very difficult. But at the same time, while you're doing the personal development, they also have the choice to do the personal development to grow within themselves. If you're growing, they have the choice within themselves to grow too, so that this is a beautiful relationship of equal co-creation. What do you need? What do you need? Bring 100% of me, bring 100% of me to the relationship, and it's awesome. But if you start to have to compromise and people please and compromise and people please and compromise, that resentment is going to build up and fester. So, again, if you've had that suppressed anger for a long time, it's not going to be as easy as just clicking your fingers and then it's all changed. You're going to have to work through years of of suppressing yourself to change the dance with people. So be ready for things to be a little bit uncomfortable before they get into a rhythm with you, to recognize that yes, you do deserve to be seen and considered and respected in that relationship. So if you try to change the dance but continue to be in that pattern of boundary violations, they aren't getting it. They're very power hungry. They don't want to lose that sense of power. It's all a very weak mindset that they must be in a sense of powerlessness themselves to need the power over you. But if you're finding yourself in that kind of dynamic, and you're noticing that the anger within you is simmering, whether that's inward or like outward, uh, we need to actually look at why you're attracting these boundary violations. We need to look at what's going on. So, as I've already mentioned before, questions like, are you a people pleaser, putting yourself second? Do you have a belief that stops you from speaking your truth? Do you have a fear of being rejected? Is there so much going on and yet you just won't ask for support? And is there a history of codependence? These these kind of topics are basically putting you second, and your intuition and your soul wants you to put yourself first. It wants you to grow. It wants you to evolve. And so if you're getting entangled in, like, these could be past lives or it could be childhood stuff, but if you're getting entangled in this lower vibration, your health is going to let you know that. And your intuition is going to pull you to make the change. In fact, that's probably why it's drawn you to this video. So we do need to go in and address why you've held yourself back, so that you get your energy back, so that you can feel empowered, and so that you can live a life by your standards. And when you do start to raise your frequency, we're not going into that egocentric mind. We're going into that place of kindness, compassion, equal co-creation with people. It's like once you've actually done the inner work and you're not showing up in that fearful place, you're going to actually attract in people who have also done the work, people who also respect that level of self-esteem, that self-worth, that they want to actually hang out with people like themselves who value that that sense of empowerment, that sense of being at cause. Because I know for myself, when I'm in that high vibrational state and I come across people on my path who are in that victim energy and they're people pleasing, it's kind of icky to me. And I'm like, okay, that's good. But I don't really want to spend a lot of social time in that lower vibration. The people at the other end who've done the work to resolve their anger, who are living in that state of self-confidence, want to be also having those dynamic, empowering conversations with people. So hopefully this gives you that inspiration to actually say, okay, yeah, what would it be like to move into that space? So, okay, where did all of this come from? Where did the people pleasing, where did all of this come from? So think back to when you were little. Suppressing your anger was actually beneficial as your survival was dependent on somebody else. Whether they wanted you to tidy your room and you didn't want to, you didn't actually have the ability to or the choice to move away from them if they got loud or aggressive or dominant or authoritative with you. You didn't actually have the choice. Like if they wanted you to be here, do that, eat this, have a bath, like they may have been quite everyday hygienic things that you needed to do, but if you didn't want them, and what was the consequence if you actually said no? So as a child, I know for myself, like this ability, the choice to say no wasn't there. And so that meant that it was like, okay, you better train your mind, train your body to people please. What do you want so I can keep the peace and go back to my drawing? What can I do to help you so that you calm down so I can go back to playing with my dolls? What do you need? So on and so forth. It was like pushing down what I wanted to make sure that they came back to harmony so I could have a little bit of peace. Kind of makes sense? So maybe your scenario was completely different, but that pushing down of your anger or pushing down your ability to speak up and say, wait a minute, I don't want to do that, or I don't want to eat that, or I don't want, or I don't want to go with you to smelly uncle house, because he's an old man and the dog jumps on me and it's like, no, we have to do what, you have to do what the family says. I'm like, oh. So anyway, I've gone way off track. But when you were little, there was no choice to speak up. If you become a people pleaser, if you're harboring this kind of anger. So pushing down anger was a strategy to ensure your survival. As an adult, you can attract in relationships where you continue to people please, where you continue to suppress your anger, as no one's actually taught you about self-validation, what it is that you want. Or like, let's do what you want. No one's actually really brought the attention to that to teach you about how to speak up, to teach you about if you do say no, that people may actually respect that rather than rejecting you. Do you know what I mean? Like going from one child to, having to, with no choice versus an adult was like, wait, I haven't had the training to know how to have choice. It's a bit of a wake up call. So if this is resonating with you, I would consider journaling on these questions. How was anger demonstrated to you? Did your parents get loud, or did the caretakers get loud, or did they become passive aggressive? What happened as a child if you actually expressed your anger? Like, were you punished? Were you suppressed? Or did you get laughed at? Like, what happened to you if you got angry? Or did people actually take you seriously and wait, okay, wait, what's going on here? Who made the decisions for you when you were growing up? Like thinking about when you were little, maybe around 5, 6, 7 years old, who made the decisions for you? And therefore, did you have to justify and prove why you wanted what you wanted? If somebody's making the decisions for you, like you're going to have that Vegemite sandwich, and it's like, no, wait a minute, I want the jam sandwich. And instead of them saying, oh, cool, okay, we'll do that. But you had to justify, I don't like Vegemite, it makes my mouth hurt, I don't want, it's sort of like, this is where you get entangled in that people pleasing and the suppression of what it is that you want. It just makes it so hard. And you almost train yourself to set yourself up to have to go through all of this pressure to work out what it is that you want. So somebody else says yes, like over time, this is going to build up that anger. And so if you're in that pattern of having to justify and prove and explain why it is that you want, how does that show up for you as an adult now? It's an interesting question, right? Like in your life now, are you automatically going into proving and justifying what you want? How frustrating. And by the way, there is a difference between proving and just expressing and communicating that. So when you work through the childhood fears and that suppression of your needs, you actually raise your standards. You're no longer in the heaviness and the suppression and the fear. You start to raise your frequency, you start to raise your self-confidence, your self-worth. And so you're no longer down the bottom here with the other people who can push your buttons. If they're also kind of in their victim mode and need a sense of power over you because at the end of the day they're powerless, you're both down here in that heavy sludge. So when you can actually work through the fear of speaking up, the fear of rejection, the fear of what are the consequences, when you actually work through that illusion, you raise your standards so that though you're not at that level, they can't push your buttons anymore, which means that if you have that self-confidence to speak up, you start to attract in those around you who respond beautifully to that. So there is a benefit to actually work through the fear and the consequence, and changing the dance with those around you can be challenging at the time to move through it, but it's so worth it at the end of the day. So if you're still feeling angry, if you've done some of these processes and you've done that self-inquiry and you're still feeling angry, still feeling people are pushing on your boundaries, then it's time to find a trusted professional in NLP and hypnotherapy, theatre healing, Reiki. I'm trained in all of those. But that way you can actually go and do the unconscious work to talk to the little version of you, the younger version of you, about why they had to put this shield up, why they had to, you know, why they had to suppress themselves. And I keep using that word, like, because this is all entangled in that anger, that powerlessness of like, okay, I'll suppress who I am to make sure you're okay. And in doing so, it meant that like if you had to put that wall up, that shield up to protect you, what actually would have happened if you didn't have that shield up? What would have happened as a child if you actually, you know, came in and was quite dominant in like your nose? Like, actually, what would have happened? And I bet if you do some of that self-inquiry, that you would have been punished. You would have somehow that sense of power from your caretakers would have squashed you. And so this ability to people please is actually your superpower when you were growing up. It ensured your survival. It was a very clever way to make sure that you could get through childhood. But at some point in time, you became an adult and you don't have to live out those childhood strategies anymore. It's quite liberating to explore that. So I hope that helps, guys. And if you need any help, get in touch with me. Otherwise, I'll talk to you later. Bye, guys.